Hello everyone and welcome to Cherries Red Army and our latest video. Make sure you like the video and please do subscribe if you haven't already. And in this video, we'll be talking about questions that fans have submitted via our social media or email, things that you're talking about at the moment. There's 4 of us in the room. There's 4 opinions. Let's see what people think. John, welcome to our latest video. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to butting heads with 3 other Bournemouth fans about everything going on at the moment with Bournemouth, and some glad to have more fan interaction with some questions. So we'll be discussing all of that jazz.
Also in the room is Matt Davies. He likes to talk about Bournemouth. He's got the historical Bournemouth in his head. But where's Bournemouth going now? Matt Davies, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, Kirk, looking forward to this. Good evening, gentlemen, to you all. Let's have some lively debate. Like we said off air, I'm sure we've all got different opinions, different views, so it'll be good to air them.
And it's not just about Bournemouth in the UK. We've got David Codron from Australia. He very much catches up with the Cherries where he can. How are you doing, David?
Very well, thanks, Kirk, and good evening and good morning to everyone else here. And Matt and John, looking forward to having a discussion about the Cherries.
Exactly. So, as I said, some of you fans have dropped us some questions that you want us to debate, and that's what we're going to do. And the first question we're going to talk about, guys, and it's from Max. I'm not sure it's from Max Deming, but it's thoughts on the new owner, Bill Foley. I'll come to you first, Matt. It's got to be soon nailed down as a done deal. The FA are holding on to it for quite a while, but we can't be far away. But the new owner, Bill Foley, there's things we've heard, and it all seems promising.
Yeah, there's a lot of we've heard. There's been a lot of publicity, a lot of media talk. I actually go on the Vitals forum myself, so there's been 1 or 2 people on there that claim. I mean, you don't know how true this is, but they claim to sort of have some sort of association with Bill Foley in terms of working. Maybe they've worked alongside him or they know him in some capacity. And everything that I've read about the fella seems to be very positive. He seems to be a very astute businessman, but a very, very ambitious one, and one that's not afraid to invest, and which is certainly music to my ears, to be honest, because it's what this football club is now crying out for, isn't it? I think Max Deming has been brilliant for 10 years. He's taken us as far as he can take us with how deep his pockets are. Just surviving in the Premier League, we need a lot of money in terms of maintaining players, signing new players, developing players, contracts, everything that goes into it with wages and agents' fees and all the rest of it. People think that you get all this money, this TV money and all this revenue and it goes in your back pocket. That's far from true. So we now need an owner and maybe a group, a consortium that have a vision in terms of the infrastructure off the field to be able to grow us as a football club. And I'm hoping that Bill Foley is that man. I mean, his track record goes before him. He's done such a thing with obviously the hockey team that he's got involved with and other ventures that he's got involved with across the pond. Like I say, he's not been afraid to invest big in terms of growing his ventures, his business, in terms of the infrastructure and putting money behind it to see it flourish. So we don't just need that on the pitch, we need it off the pitch as well, because for us to be a sustainable football club at this level, I think I've said before, we're going to need investment in the facilities behind the scenes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But my first impressions are, everything that I've heard and read and seen is good. I'm really on board with it. It seems really positive. But the proof is going to be in the pudding, isn't it? When he hopefully gets it rubber stamped and comes along and let's see what he can do.
David, I think it's only fair at this point to say that we still have to recognise as well that there will be sceptical fans out there, and that the future looks bright for AFC Bournemouth, but there's always a risk involved. And there will be some fans that are just frightened of it not being what it's made out to be, and that Bournemouth could be in trouble years down the line with all these promises not coming to life. Is that fair? And have we got to respect that as fans, that not everyone's going to have the same opinion?
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's human nature to be a bit apprehensive about change and facing the unknown. We've had Max for, I think it's 10, 11 years now, and we've all been very happy. Well, sorry, I wouldn't speak for every fan, but I've certainly been happy. And I think the general consensus is, the approach, his approach as an owner, not getting too heavily involved in the club, letting the football people run the football department, and just providing the financing. So we've had it very, very good under Max. And I think that being said, yeah, the infrastructure hasn't really been progressed in that time, but we've definitely had the success on the playing on the pitch, and that's all any Bournemouth fan would have wanted 10 years ago. So, you know, moving into a new chapter and facing the unknown, I think you're going to have some level of skepticism, but from a personal point of view, I tend to reserve judgment until I see it. So eagerly anticipating what the new chapter brings, and wait to assess and judge when it comes.
But Jon, there is a balancing act here, because he's going to have to balance those different opinions of fans in whether they like this potential new deal, and there will be fans that are worried about it. Look, he's got these promises he's put on the table that he's going to do this and he's going to do that. How does he come in? Does he come in like a bull in a china shop and just start throwing money around, or has he got to play a careful card?
Well, I mean, as you can see by the Newcastle takeover, that with current it just doesn't matter how much money you have with FFP, you cannot just go throwing it around. Now, I don't know the full ins and outs of FFP, so I know as to how it entails to player purchases and wages, but I don't know how much it's incorporated into infrastructure, and how much money that you're allowed as an owner to put into a club if it can be shown to be put towards training facilities, changing rooms, or whatever the like. Because that's sort of the area that I think is almost most in need of work. It was a real, dagger in the heart with regards to the training ground getting stopped when obviously COVID kicked in. We had to save on as many pennies as we could, and that got shelved. And now that project isn't to the grandest scale that we really wanted it to be. So I would hope that with new owner, with more money, he will be able to put in to get even more out of that than was originally sort of appreciated that we would do, given the sort of pullback there was under Max, that we'd still get it, but it wouldn't be to the same extent that it was. So I'm hoping that he can do that. He's definitely keen to look to upgrade the stadium, which is fantastic. Well, upgrade or move, one or the other. I think there is demand enough, but it's just about how financially viable it is, and I think that's what's held back Max from putting money into building a new stadium, because you need to be doing a lot more with it, and he is someone that has done as much as he can to make his investments financially viable with all kinds of ad buys, and getting money in from all sorts of revenues, and I mean, we'd love to see things like boxing match for our local hero, hosted at Dean Court or equivalent. So Chris Villan Smith, name escaped me for a moment, but you can still, there is always a devil's advocate. You have to try and look at what the things, the potential downsides. Someone that really wants to come in and sort of make the most of the club. If things turn sour after a significant amount of investment, then suddenly you're left with a massive hole in your accounting, and that can really backfire. And it is a worry that if he goes too gung ho and it doesn't work out, that is the thing that you have to really consider. And he really looks like he wants to really push us on. And you only have to look at Everton and the fact that they've spent £500 million and it's all been shoved down the toilet essentially. So there are worries. Is he going to bring in the right manager? Bielsa, we're going to come on to that later. Is he necessarily the right man for the job? Are you looking for more of a name? That is a worry. So it's broadly positive, without a doubt. I am really pleased with this, but you do need to be mindful of the drawbacks, be mindful of the worries of other people. And we've seen that dissenting voices are being shut down a little bit too aggressively at the moment. So people's voices need to be heard on these. And as Matt says, proof is in the pudding. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But there are definitely, it's not all positives. We do need to be level-headed about this.
How important is it, Matt, him spending 120 million? Because that's going to be important to him, that he does the right things to benefit himself, but also he does the right things for the fans. But how important is it that he understands the Bournemouth story and history?
Massively important for anybody coming into this football club, be it a player, be it a new supporter, be it a coach, a manager, an owner, whoever it is. I think you have to have, and I think that's probably true in any walk of life, any business, any organisation or company that you commit to and you invest in as an employee. Let's say, for argument's sake, I think you need to appreciate the ethos. You need to understand a bit about the history, about the culture of that particular environment, of that organisation, about what it is, where it's come from, etc. So, he's an astute businessman. There's no doubt about that. He hasn't got to where he has today by not being astute, by not being diligent, by not being educated when he goes into this sort of venture. So I've got no doubt that he will have an understanding and an appreciation of the history of this football club. I'd be massively, massively disappointed if he didn't, because as John rightly said, and David as well, that we are going to be sceptical because we've had such good times under Max for the last 10 years, and with previous chairmen and owners as well. You look at the honesty or the perceived sort of honesty and integrity and commitment of people like Jeff Mostyn and even people before him. So for somebody like this to come in, this sort of mega star, if you like, mega sort of entrepreneur and businessman from across in the United States, it's not something that we're used to as a football club, is it? So there is going to be scepticism. But yeah, I've no doubt that he's done his due diligence and he'll have an understanding, Kirk, in answer to your question of the history of our football club. You'd like to really hope so.
I trust Max, and I'm sure he would have asked those type of questions, and we can only believe what Bill Foley's telling us. If I was to go around the room, and I only want one word, are you for this deal, David? Yes or no?
Yeah, for.
You for it, Matt?
Yeah, 100% for. Yeah, as it stands.
Yep. Yes, for.
See, they did it. One word, 2 words. But there will be fans out there that are not for it, and they're absolutely fair to have that opinion because no one knows, only time will tell. And when Bill Foley is confirmed as the new owner of AFC Bournemouth, David, one of his first jobs is to appoint a new head coach for the Cherries. And we're going to nail it down to 2 because that's all we're hearing. There are other names potentially in Knutson that fans would like to see. But at the moment, it seems like it's a 2-horse race between O'Neill and Bielsa. How are you feeling? Who should be the next AFC Bournemouth manager? Because that was the next question we got when we put this out to our socials.
I would love to have a definitive answer between the 2, but it depends on what hour of the day I'm feeling. It's 2 completely different choices for 2 completely different reasons, and I flip-flop between, do I want to stay with what we've got? We've got a manager who knows the players, who's done well enough to keep us above the relegation zone, who's given us a platform to continue with this second half of the season, or do we want to pull up roots, bring in a more progressive manager, a more expansive manager, one that's got the pedigree and all the accolades that he's got. He's got a completely different system. I obviously listened to John's analysis the other day, and I couldn't disagree with him on that point, that it's a 180-degree U-turn to what we currently are doing that is working well enough to I believe anyway, to keep us in the Premier League. Is it what we want 4 or 5 years down the track if we were to consolidate in the Premier League? Probably not. I think Gary O'Neill and this current squad have a ceiling. That ceiling is still to stay in the Premier League, I believe, but it's probably not to go to the next level of a top 10 team. And Bielsa has that ability to do that. It's just whether this is the right time for a Bielsa-like manager.
See, John, people do watch your videos. See, I did tell you. They do check them out. Bielsa Ball. You're trying to take me away from Bielsa Ball, John. You made a very good point about how long it can take to adapt to his style of football. Now, we've got to credit where credit due. Gary O'Neill did a great job. He steadied the ship. He got points on the board. He made us competitive. I think under a magnifying glass, it wasn't completely flawless. He made mistakes throughout against Southampton. He threw games away against Tottenham and Leeds. And that's because he's learning on the job for me. And I think if he gets the job now, John, although I agree with points you've made and David's made, he's corner cutting his progressive career. I think he's set up beautifully now, either to continue an apprenticeship under someone like Bielsa, if a deal like that can be done, or fall into the Championship. I'm sure Matt's got thoughts on this as well. John, that's what I've got to say in return to your video.
I don't want to go too long because I literally have a 25-minute video on this. So
it's on the card.
Yes, it's somewhere. It's maybe up there, maybe somewhere. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point if you're looking purely at O'Neill and what he might think of his career. There's, in terms of that, you do. I don't know. The way that Bournemouth playing isn't exactly. I doubt O'Neill would get pigeonholed into like a Sean Dyche type hole, which I think he's unfairly sort of shoveled into. This football has the potential to then further expand. I think O'Neill is very much understanding of the ability of the players, of the situation he's in, and should, we survive, more investment comes into the club, he could definitely create a more expansive style. I think you don't become a highly rated coach at Liverpool without being able to create attractive football. So I think O'Neill has very much an ability to then sort of push on from this if we were to keep hold of it. But if he moves to, say, Luton's gone now because it's taken someone by Rob Edwards, and I think he ruled himself out of the job already. But if there was a decent level Championship club, I think he could take a different approach to the way he manages. I would sort of make a point about one thing I did in my video, as you mentioned, in terms of how long it will take Bournemouth to sort of get under Bielsa ball and his murder ball style, is that I think the difference possibly is the fact that Leeds players were definitely nowhere near ready for that kind of football, whereas Bournemouth actually in the past have had very impressive stamina levels, have been very good in terms of their work rate. I don't think it's going to take as long as the 4 to 6 months Liam Cooper said that Leeds did when Bielsa first came in. But it is that culture shock. It is that doing, as David said, a complete 180 compared to the very defensive, keep the ball as little as possible style of O'Neill, to go to the incredibly offensive, still direct, but playing an incredibly high line murder ball style that Bielsa does. And at the moment, I am similar to David. I could definitely pick either. I really could go with either way. I think Bielsa is more of a risk, which I think is maybe something that a lot of people don't think. I think O'Neill, so a lot of people would probably say O'Neill's the bigger risk. I think Bielsa is definitely the bigger risk, but it has the bigger upside in the immediate term. But again, I think it's a bigger risk. And I still don't have, as I finished that video, I still don't have a set answer.
We did a Twitter poll, Matt. We asked if the fans, and it's only minority fans, so it's not everyone. I appreciate not everyone's on Twitter, but there was 61% that wanted Bielsa. And then it was split between Neva and Gary O'Neill for the rest of the percentage. If you're spending £120 million on a football club and you've got plans to build a brand new training ground and a stadium, do you take a punt on someone who had a interim job that really didn't have a lot of pressure, in my opinion, to then being amplified with pressure and no real experience because you're learning on the job, as I've said?
I mean, it's a difficult decision for Bill Foley, and I get both sides. At 9 a.m, I think, David, we probably both knocked on the head with it. At 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm there at work thinking, I want Bielsa. And do you know what I liken it to? I've got a little analogy. When you're young, when I was a teenager or whatever, you always go after, when you're at school, you get led on by these girls who are, you just know that they're really...
I knew exactly where it was going.
Really pretty girl, and you get led on by them, you get led up the garden path, and you think, this is going to be amazing. I've got to go with this because it's so exciting and it's going to bring me so much happiness and joy in the immediate term. I can't turn this down. In the back of your head, you're thinking, it's not a good fit for me, though, is it? She's gonna mess me up.
She's out of my league.
She's out of the league. In a couple of years' time, I'm going to be a mental mess. I'm going to be an absolute state. But you still can't help yourself, and that's a little bit how I feel with Bielsa, because what Bill Foley, I think, is trying to do is he's trying to grow us as a football club. Obviously, he wants to put bums on seats. So if he's going to commit to a new stadium or expanding the stadium, he wants to put bums on seats. Bielsa will do that. He is a household name. He is world renowned. The type of football that he plays will put those bums on seats. no doubt will attract new supporters, be it families, be it drifting football fans who are fans of lower league clubs, non-league clubs, whoever it is, across the whole conurbation area into other counties. And that's obviously what he's looking at to make sure that we can fill a stadium. And I think that is part of it. I really do. It's a gamble. They're both gambles, massive gambles, either one, whichever he picks. For me, Gary O'Neill has proved, and this is where I'm edging towards O'Neill, he's proved that he can learn on the job very, very quickly. And those 2 Everton games that we've just had have really thrown a curveball right into the mix, because I believe that before the Everton games and after Leeds away, this was a done deal. O'Neill was never getting near that job. I think the board, the new owners, Richard Hughes, Neil Blake, all got together and said, great stuff you've done, Gary. This is what they were going to say to him, but you're not ready, son, for this sort of job. And it was Bielsa's. They were courting Bielsa all day long. Now I think he has proved, Gary, that he can learn on the job. And all right, it was Everton were poor in both games, but look how he's learned from coming into the job in day one to where we are now. And I think he's got an affinity with the fans. He's got a connection with the football club. He is a young camp coach, a manager who I rate very, very highly. Very, very, he's a student of the game, like I said before, very eloquent, comes across very well, very likeable. The players obviously have bought into him. And we're going to go down a path, like John and David have said, of Bielsa, who is going to rip all that up. And he's going to say to the squad that he's got, no, I don't want you to do that now. Gary's gone now. You've got to do it my way. But we're halfway through a season and 3 points above a relegation zone. So how long is that going to take to bed in? And how long is Bielsa going to stick around? Because I don't see this as a long-term appointment. I really don't, if we go with it.
I'm not anti-O'Neill, and I'd love to keep him at the club. If you've not fallen into the trap, though, Matt, that was a poor Everton team twice. I mean, they can't score goals for love nor money.
100%, Kirk. But what you have to remember as well is that you have to pinch yourself, because it is Everton Football Club. And when you look at the quality that they still have got throughout their football club, throughout their team, we've absolutely ripped them to shreds. And that hasn't happened in every game they've played this season. So they're not that poor. They've got some real quality about them. I think it was a lot about us making them look poor as well. And you have to put a lot of that down to Gary O'Neill. I came on after Leeds and said we haven't got enough quality, both in the managerial department and in the player department. And in the last 2 games, he's made me eat my words, really. And I like it. And then, he's proven that he can learn on the job. So do we give him that job? Because we all love him, we all like him, and we've all bought into him. So it's crazy to think that we could be turning Bielsa. We're turning our nose. And I've heard Leeds fans, they've all said, what are you talking about, Bournemouth fans? You don't know how lucky you would be to have a man like Marcelo Bielsa managing your football club. Are you joking? And I get that. I can't argue with that. But we are who we are, and you have to think rationally as well, don't you, in the long term as fans.
David, I don't see Bielsa as like a 5-year plan. I think I see him as a 3-year plan that maybe sets up for the next real long-term plan. As Bournemouth, as we currently stand, I don't think we should be setting up to try and keep clean sheets. I don't think we'll keep many clean sheets. So Bielsa ball, I mean, it'll be exciting, won't it? I mean, we'll score goals. We'll win football matches.
It'll be exciting, but I mean, how many games can we get points out of if we're shipping 3-4 goals a game? We've seen, we scored enough goals to effectively beat Leeds and probably get to beat Tottenham or get a point. But when you conceding goals, it's very hard to pick up points. And you say that you don't want to see us set up to keep clean sheets. I thought that approach early on in the season helped us get those points where, the games against Brentford, Wolves, Newcastle, they were very cautious, but they were games that I believe that if we had a more expansive philosophy, we are playing with 38% of the possession, that if we set up to really go at those games, I just felt the other teams on those days had the quality to pick us apart if we opened up too much. So I think it really is about that balance. I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight that Everton game was the perfect balance. It was, we still only had 38% of the ball, but we attacked when we needed to, and we were solid defensively. So it was almost the perfect performance.
I don't think.
Yep. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, David. I was going to say, continue what you were saying. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just actually going to go back to the question was the question, who do I think the next manager will be, or who do I think Bill Foley will select as the next manager?
I suppose, no, do you know what? I mean, who would you like to see? And that was what I was literally going to say.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not going to get a definitive answer out of everyone in this room, but I'm interested to know. I'm going to say Bielsa. I understand what John's saying. I think he makes a very good point in the video. You should definitely go and watch if you haven't seen it yet. That he makes a good point about how long it might take Bielsa ball to get going at Bournemouth. But I do worry about Gary O'Neill getting a permanent contract and a permanent deal. I think we've seen it before where managers have done okay as interim, then got the real deal, and they've really struggled. And I just don't think corner cutting his career is the right move. Although I'd back him, by the way, if Gary O'Neill got the job. I'm in Bielsa's corner. If I was to go around the room and ask you who you would like to be the next AFC Bournemouth manager, going back to David, are you going to give me a name, or are you sitting on the fence?
At the moment, I'm on the fence. I do strongly believe that if we can get Bielsa, Foley will go for Bielsa. I think it's in his nature. I don't know if this is a one-word thing, but something that hasn't really been discussed here is his history of creating an expansion team in Las Vegas. It was a risky venture, setting up in a new city that's doesn't have a huge local feel about it. It's all about the people coming in and the transient nature, and it was an unknown quantity professional sports in Las Vegas, and he clearly has a bit of risk about him. He's got a statement of intent, and I think that's why he will go for broke in that appointment. I think he'll go for Bielsa.
All right, Matt. 1 week you're Bielsa. Last week you're O'Neill. Where are you now?
So the sensible and rational side of me says O'Neill. So when I'm being all serious and sensible, I think, Gary O'Neill's the sensible option. He's the he's got the job at the moment. And again, going back to likening it to being an employee myself, when you're at a certain level, so say you're in a job, Kirk, where you're earning a certain money, you're doing a job and it's stretching you and it's really challenging you. But if somebody takes that job away and says to you, I don't think you're up to doing it, I think you should go back to being down the ladder a little bit. How are you going to feel about that? Because I know how I'd feel. I know how I'd feel, and I think Gary O'Neill would feel the same. Well, I'm doing the job now. I'm proving I can learn on the job. So why would I want to take a step backwards in my career?
That's why I think it's a difficult conversation, because he might feel like it's a demotion now. So in answer to your question, Kirk, if Gary O'Neill gets the job, part of me will be really, really disappointed, because I even though it's the rational, the right, sensible decision probably from in my head, because I want us to be the best and the most respected football club in footballing circles that we can be, and I want to be excited as a fan. So if it was announced tomorrow that O'Neill's got the job and Bielsa's not coming, there will be a big part of me that is so gutted and so disappointed. So in answer to your question, I haven't got a clue. I don't know what to think. Whatever happens, I don't know. I really don't know. So how Bill Foley and the board are going to make this decision, I don't know, because emotions are all over the place with both candidates. John, are you still sat on the fence?
Well, in my video, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, I certainly, I gave that I believe that Foley will probably go for Bielsa. I think if he's got the availability, just like David said, I gave more points to Bielsa than I did to O'Neill. Personally, when I look at the job that O'Neill's done, when I look at the risk that it would be with Bielsa, and when I balance basically, do you want attractive, free-flowing, high-tempo, bonkers football that's going to be incredibly entertaining, or do you want someone that's going to keep it safe and be a bit more secure? I'm more confident that O'Neill would keep us up. So I actually am very much not on the fence anymore. I think I would rather go for O'Neill personally, but I think that it is completely understandable, as has been done by our little survey, Kirk, that most people want to see Bielsa, and I think that does also largely come down to the fact that, as I've mentioned, O'Neill's football isn't that fun for 80% of games. It's not really the greatest to look at. It's very defensive, it's very counter-attack, and a lot of the time we don't really make much of the chances we do get. Whereas Bielsa will be manic, it will be fun, it will be bonkers, and it will definitely be one of the most entertaining teams in the league. So I totally understand why people want Bielsa, but I personally In my rational way of looking at it, I would prefer O'Neill.
Quick question, John, if I may, Kirk.
Go.
Do you not think Gary O'Neill's opened that up in recent games? I know you said, because we all saw how cautious he was and how hell-bent he was on keeping things tight when he first took the job, because he really needed to steady the ship and he needed to stop us conceding goals after being spanked 9-0, and he wanted to concentrate and focus on that side of the game to keep us solid and keep us tight and see what we could nick on the break. But do you not think that in recent games that's gone out the window a little bit and he has opened up? If you look at Leeds away, how open we were in that game.
When we're winning by 2 clear goals.
Yeah. Do you not think that he's become more? He's tried to become more exciting in his brand and his style of play and be more expansive?
No, I would say that it's more so for 2 things. I would say, firstly, you've got Marcus Tavernier has suddenly started producing his final balls and producing goals, which he wasn't, because Tavernier has been so important for O'Neill in basically attack, defence and transition. Every bit of the game is reliant on Tavernier doing his job when he hasn't done the attacking bit yet. So now that he has, we're producing those goals. And secondly, I'd say that Tottenham was a weakened team, and they were definitely not up to the counter-attacking play that we were performing. Leeds, similar. They really weren't. We were actually, I think we were doing a really good job, and I just think O'Neill was almost too defensive when we were 3-1 up. Either go all out and bring on Pearson, or try and push up further like, say, a Bielsa would, and really sort of hammer them in. And then Everton were terrible. So I don't think it really matters too much what we did against Everton. But I would say that in all cases, we still had the least possession. I think there's only 1 game this season we've had more than 50% possession. Our XG numbers, I think we've only beaten 1 team on XG so far this season, which would be Everton in the league. He's still playing very defensive, very counter-attacking football, which when it works is fantastic against Tottenham, against Leeds, against Everton, the first 2 only up to the first 60 minutes because he didn't change with the other manager. That's not going to change. I don't think that'll change all season unless we make some big sales, make some big purchases in January. It's not that I think that it's always boring. I said it's 80% of games it's bad. I think or boring. I think West Ham was terrible. You look at Southampton was terrible. Brentford wasn't great. Fulham was pretty good, but there are going to be some very entertaining games for the neutral. Some of them were fantastic, but I think he allows the team to come out of its shell, but they need to perform to be able to do that, and we're taking chances at the moment.
We just haven't gone for the jugular, have we? When we've been in the front in games like Fulham, like Leeds, and really hit home that advantage and punish teams. Yeah. That's my criticism, I suppose, one of the main ones. But I think
one of the. So I was just going to say one of the other differences in those games as well is Kiefer Moore. And having him as a more direct focal point and getting up the pitch quicker, still not pressing all the way forward, but getting that ball up to him quicker allows us to get up the pitch more.
I would agree with that, David. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Probably been a huge...
giving us a presence and a focal point,
and giving us the ability to hold the ball up, win a throw-in up the pitch. It's just changed our ability to... get ourselves up the pitch when we do have the ball. But I don't believe that we've really changed our the amount of attacking that we have done in the past.
Interesting stuff. And I think we can get your comments below about this, because I'm sure there's still going to be lots of talk on Bielsa and O'Neill. But it's mixed. I know that it was just Bielsa on our poll, but it is very split. But we're going to move on to the next question. We're going to move away from life choices that we might have made, taking out girlfriends to the cinema. We're going to move on to the next question that was dropped. A couple of questions, actually, we could blend together. I think the first one from Paul was talking about the approach and the infrastructure of the club. I think we could probably go into this in detail. But David, I think we could probably just brush over quickly. I'm not sure many would disagree that the training ground will be massive for the club. It will take our category status higher, which means we'll be able to get in better players because we'll have better facilities. The first team will be able to have a place away from the stadium where they can have a balanced regime, but also have a place where they feel comfortable and do what they need to do Monday to Friday. And ultimately, we won't lose players down the road or to other clubs that have got a better category status training ground.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple with that. I think if you had to prioritize a new stadium or a training facility, I think the training facility is required first. something you want to build from the ground up. And I think exactly what you said, you want to have that infrastructure in place for the academy, for the young players and for the first team players that gives them an incentive to stay, that they don't feel like they can get better development elsewhere. And that will hold us in good stead to progress this football club.
I'm sure we all agree on the training ground. I do want to move on to the next one, though, which was OMID, and we had a few more about the stadium, Matt, because this is going to be massive. And you've been going to Dean Court like a lot of fans for a lot of years, and Dean Court's been moved and turned. And it's a place that fans, especially Cherries fans, love. You know, even away fans love the stadium, as small as it is, because it's right on top of the pitch. You don't get many stadiums like that anymore. And as Bill Foley's already said, apparently, that he wants to do something with the stadium. He wants to increase the capacity. What do we do? Do we do something with Dean Court, but there's probably restrictions there because we know we don't own the stadium fully? Or do we go for a new, fresh bowl? But it's probably going to have mixed reviews.
Yeah, I mean, there's two trains. I mean, this is a topic that I always think about and talk about, and have done. We all have done for years, haven't we? Because there's been the promise of it, and there's no question. You know, 10 years ago, the stadium that we're in, 10 years ago, and going back further, for most of our history, most of it, not all of it, but most of it was adequate for us. This stadium, it was fine, not a problem. Now, and for years now, we've definitely outgrown it, and the proof there is our away numbers for starters. So let's look at the facts. We have to travel some of the furthest distances in the country. Yet in the Championship last season, and I know that we finished up the top end, but it's not a novelty for us. We've done it before. We were mid-table in terms of away numbers. So we averaged about 1,400 away fans taken to away games each week. Averaged 1,400. So that kept us mid-table. So that is an indicator of what our home support could be. We have 400,000 people in the conurbation, 500,000 people nearly across the conurbation. Yes, it's not. Maybe people will say it's not particularly a football area. As David touched on, transient population. There are factors, but I would just love to see what the potential is here, and I think that's what Bill Foley's trying to tap into, because we don't know, do we? We can all speculate. We don't know. There's two trains of thought. This is what I'll go back to saying. So you've got the people that say, build it and they'll come. Let's build a 25, 30,000 stadium and they'll come. And there's others that say, we don't need it. We're happy where we are. We're comfortable. But what I don't want to do, and I live in the area, obviously. You do as well, Kirk. I know, David, obviously you don't. And John, you don't. But I see so many more AFC Bournemouth fans about now with shirts, stickers in cars, you name it, training tops, everywhere. The kids, and we are we're at risk of shutting out a generation of new supporters that will help us in the long term by being so narrow-minded with this stadium thing, and not increasing the capacity, not giving fans the opportunity to come, be it families, you know. So to do that, you need a big arena, because families come as families of 4 or 5. They all want to sit together. Groups of lads want to go with 4, 5, 6 people. They all want to sit together. You've got to open it up. So some people are saying build it and they come. Some people are saying keep it. It's probably, if I'm being honest, somewhere in between that we need to pitch it. You look at Brentford, similar size club through history, similar history to ourselves. You look at what they've got. Maybe we could be a Watford or a Swansea City. That is probably the best that we can hope to be. But I'll go back to saying what I said previously. I want this football club to be respected. I don't want to be a laughing stock. I don't want to, have crowds read out of 10,300 in the Premier League. A, it's not sustainable. And B, fans of other clubs just think there's no potential in Bournemouth. It's just a sleepy hollow of a seaside town with nothing going for it. And that riles me. It really annoys me, because I know that, but you look at our away numbers, I go back to saying it before, you look at the demand that is there, I know that we could be so much more than that. And I want us to tap into that potential, and I want us to exploit it. And that will allow us to become sustainable, whether it's as a Championship club, maybe down the line, like Reading have done, or as a Premier League club. We need to do that to become sustainable. Yes, the training ground has to come first. The foundations have to be built, but something has to be done about the stadium. I don't want to become another Reading, because you look at them now, 24,000 stadium, they barely half fill it. And they're, competitive in the Championship. I don't want that. I don't want to be attending a soulless bowl like that every week with 11,000, 10,000 fans in it. But by the same token, we can't stand still and do nothing, can we? Something needs to happen.
I'm going to say it, John, and I'm probably a 10 years behind here, but I'm just visualising where we were before those championship seasons. And Matt's absolutely right. We have got a new generation coming through. And I do go into Tesco's and I see more Bournemouth fans, more Bournemouth shirts, where I used to see other Premier League shirts. I don't think 20,000, more than 20,000. I think 20,000 is enough. I don't think we need any more than that. You don't build a stadium, John, for 5 minutes. And I know Bill Foley's going to have big aspirations to do more. But as fans, we've got to commit as well. And if times get hard at any point, we've got to still turn up. That's my big fear. And I'm sure we would. But I don't want to end up seeing a 20,000 seat stadium with 10,000 people in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is the thing that I can't remember where I read it, but I certainly remember seeing somewhere about building a new stadium or expanding. Well, it was more about building a new stadium. But if we returned our 12,000 at full 100% capacity and turned it into, let's say, 20,000. The actual match revenue doesn't go up that much. It really doesn't. It's really a drop in the ocean every year as to the increase, because nowadays match day revenue makes up such a small percentage of your income in the Premier League because of the TV rights. So building a new stadium creates a substantial deficit in your in the kind of money you can spend elsewhere in the club over a sustained period of time. You only need to look at Arsenal and how long they spoke about paying off the new stadium, and that's a massive club, and that was a decent increase in the size of the possible match day income, and yet they were paying that off for over a decade, if not two. And obviously, the club itself were getting pelters because of them not being as competitive as they wanted to be because of it. Things, I think, are a little bit different in terms of the fact that Bill Foley, from what I've heard, and as someone that's an outsider of football, or soccer, as I'm sure he would call it, until we, got it into him that you don't call it that over here, is that I remember reading reports of, I'm pretty sure Anna Sherville would have done it. I'm sure Dan Davis did something similar on Dorset Live about the fact that he's got a whiskey sponsor, he's got a wine sponsor, he's got a beer sponsor, he's got probably have a cider. He probably could get 4 or 5 cider sponsors down here in Dorset. But
as long as they keep the Inches cider, because that's my favourite. So as long as they keep that one,
as long as they've got it, But he wants to do a lot more than just have a stadium, as was prevalent in the fact that when he built up the Texas Golden Knights team, he made that stadium. He grabbed as much as he could out of everything other than match day income from his stadium. Things are obviously a bit different with an ice rink, but football stadiums can host a lot more than just a football match. So I think that. Ideally, I think in an initial period, I think certainly there were plans that were put in place for us to finalise the south stand and fill in the corners to turn it into a 17,000 seater. And I think as sort of an interim measure, that would be decent. But I think for the ambition of Bill Foley, I think he would want to be able to do a lot more outside of match days with the stadium, and you can't really do that with the current Dean Core. There needs to be much bigger. What's the word I'm looking for? For the I can't even remember the name of it. But things like making a decent sized restaurant, making other facilities for hosting events, making it so that basically 365 days of the year or near enough, you can get something going on in the stadium so that you can make some money out of it. And whether you can really do that with Dean Court at the moment, I highly doubt that. So
it's limited. Yeah,
exactly.
Very limited.
So I think that firstly, you've got difficult transport. It's great in terms of it's right next to a dual carriageway, but actually getting in and out is a nightmare. So so building it, getting it into an area that is much more easier to access, or even arranging situations with the Bournemouth Poole and Christchurch Council to even open up other avenues. I think if you can make Bournemouth Football Club an even bigger event, an even bigger part of the town, I think the council would back that, because
they'll benefit.
Bournemouth being in the Premier League did so much to benefit the tourism of the area.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
You get more away,
raise the profile.
you get more. You get a bigger stadium. You get more away fans in. It improves the tourism every match, every weekend, particularly in the summer. Obviously, most fans of the Premier League want Bournemouth away in the summer. So, I think Foley would probably definitely want to build a new stadium, and I think for his plans, he will be very much looking at where he can build a new stadium. But at the moment, I don't see that as necessarily the financial priority, or at least whether it necessarily should be the financial priority.
David, there's going to be lots of things that go into this in regards to he'll have a look at Dean Court and see what he can do with that. Can he buy the stadium? What can he do with it? Does he find a plot somewhere else? Is it just further up King's Park potentially, because there is space up there? In one of the factors, is he going to look at it knowing that he's got enough money to spend, that he just wants to get more respect for Bournemouth having a stadium that should belong in the Premier League, if that's fair?
I think it's completely fair. I think his history, as I said, building a new team in Las Vegas, a lot of it is about appearances and having that perception of a team that deserves to be in the Premier League, that has the infrastructure that the Premier League demands, will be forefront of his mind. And that's, I mean, I don't know the guy and I haven't read too much, but I imagine that's what his ambition is to make us a consolidated Premier League team and have the infrastructure that says we're a consolidated Premier League team. And having a stadium that says that is part of his vision. I think, and also what John was saying, I think setting up a sports entertainment precinct around the stadium is also what he will want to create as well.
Matt, just a final thought on this before we move on to one of our last questions. If it's not Dean Court, how delicate has Bill Foley got to play that decision?
Well, if it's not Dean Court, I mean, you bang on as well, boys. And there's one point that I would be making as well, is that there's no payback for an owner to build a new stadium unless you're utilising that stadium through other avenues and making it into a big corporate venue that's drawing income from other streams and making you money, because matchday revenue is just not going to do it for increasing it by another 10,000 seats. There's no payback for an owner. But he has to be sensitive to the fact that we've always been at Dean Court. That is our home. And if, like other clubs have done, moving these stadiums out of town into a retail park or the edge of a motorway, I've just got visions of us, being at Ashley Heath somewhere or somewhere like that, or off the Spur Road in the middle of nowhere with no amenities, no character, no facilities around it, and a park and ride. And that for me would be a disaster. I think if we can, we're trying to have our cake and eat it here, aren't we, boys? But I think if we can stay where we are within King's Park, if we're going to build a new stadium, and then, like John says, improve the infrastructure in terms of the road network, even Folkestone Station, and link that better towards the stadium. He's got to do that. But again, that's added expense, isn't it? He's got to foot the bill for that. Whether the council will share the burden, I'm not so sure. I think they're likely to say, well, you want a new stadium, you pay for all the infrastructure around it as well. So it's a big commitment for him. And yes, he'll draw in sponsors. Yes, he'll draw in investment. I'm sure he will. There'll be a consortium involved and there'll be revenue streams that come out of it. He'll build a complex around it. But it's a big commitment that he'll make. And if he ever did it, I think we'd have to be eternally grateful and thankful, because it will build us a legacy for life, really, won't it, if that happens? And we need to raise the profile of the area, Kirk. Yeah. We need to raise the profile of the town, the area. Let's be more respected, because there is potential there.
And I think Bill Foley will try to bring more of the world into Bournemouth, and we've done that already in the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I think he'll try and bring more to that. He'll have that feel, I think, of the town. But it's way more than that. You know, we're speaking to David right now, which I think is absolutely amazing, and he loves the club just as much as we do, and he's 24 hours away on a plane.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly right.
and that's what it's all about. I think the title of this was Fans Questions Answered. I mean, we're debating stuff, we're bringing up really good points, but again, I think we're not quite sure whether it's Dean Court or a new stadium. But again, interesting times for Bournemouth. One of the last questions, guys, we've got about 10 minutes left on this video, and we're going to talk more about this. So you need to subscribe to Cherries Red Army, because it's going to be talking about the squad, especially in January. John will be doing transfer videos. Well, we will be. We will be doing. A question from a couple of fans, Jack, Paul, what positions within the team need strengthening in January, and what players should be loaned or sold? Your thoughts on that, really, because I think for me there is a space in that team that requires a little bit more pace. I think we have that in Dembele. I'm just not sure Dembele's completely Premier League quality.
It's a tough one, because really there almost isn't a position we couldn't upgrade in some regards with significant investment, which is what we imagine Bill Foley will bring. I think the keeping department is actually decent. I think Travers is a really good backup, and Neto has shown himself to be strong enough. I think Solanke's fantastic as a striker, and Keeper Moore backs him up, plays well with him, although that is basically it. We've only got 2 strikers. So it depends what we're wanting to play, what the new manager or same manager wants to do, as we may need to build another striker for depth, which could see Jamal Lowe leave. The players like James Hill. Well, James Hill definitely needs to go out on loan, but that would bring us down to 4 centre-backs. So I'd imagine we bring in another centre-back. Central midfield is probably our strongest position in terms of depth. And then, left back. We definitely need a left back. Above all other things, I think we need another left back. We've only got one, and I don't want Adam Smith playing there anymore. I think definitely left back, possibly another striker. Probably another centre back, given I'm sure we'll send Hill out on loan. It's not like we couldn't upgrade the wingers or even heck, we've already got 3 right backs. Why not buy another 2? We'll see what happens. It's difficult to find areas we couldn't upgrade, to be honest. But I certainly would pick left back, a backup striker, a backup centre back, and I'd see a few sales and loans going out probably.
I'm going to hit rewind, David, on this video, because we could almost go back now to how important could the next manager be for AFC Bournemouth. And this is another reason that I didn't mention why I'd want Bielsa, because I think he has so much experience being 67 and a worldwide network and a pull that could get us some players, because I think Bill Foley will hand cash. And I think although Gary O'Neill's well known in this country as a player, if you're wanting to sign for Bournemouth and someone goes, you're playing for Bielsa, you're playing for O'Neill, how important is that?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I definitely agree that Bielsa is going to have more pull and a wider range of players that might want to come and play for him than Gary O'Neill does. In terms of what do we need to strengthen, I mean, I'm looking at our starting 11 and trying to figure out who would I replace in that team. Obviously, there's going to be upgrades available you could have, but I like our starting 11 now. Bringing in players to become depth players. I mean, you're not going to get quality players to come and sit on the bench or play in a squad rotation system. So it's a question of which players am I comfortable moving from first team regulars into a squad rotation or a backup position. And I suppose maybe, a winger, a pacey winger is probably one spot that we could bring in. We're going to have 3 centre backs, hopefully, with Kelly coming back. And I'm having enough issues trying to work out which 2 of those 3 are going to play every week. So you're going to end up bringing in another one, and that adds to the complications. But it's a good problem to have, having squad depth. But it could also rock I think we've got a close unit of players that the team chemistry is pretty strong. But that being said, to move forward as a football club, you have to bring in new players. You have to strengthen the squad. And I mean, I just don't know which positions I want to replace first team regulars with.
I have just written it down. It is 2 left-footed centre backs and 1 right. That's what we've got. No, we've got 2 right-footed centre backs now, haven't we?
2 and
right.
2, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, just double checking that. Matt, that's one for John, by the way. Matt, I know you like 28 players in the squad. I know you like to bloat a football team. Potentially bloating a football team means that some players have to leave. Jamal Lowe, Sariki Dembele. I mean, are they going to continue to be happy in a squad like this? I know I'm only joking about bloating the squad.
Yeah, I know.
Where are you at with January transfer window?
Look, I got it wrong about Kiefer Moore. I have so far, of course, about that signing, but I still stand by what I said about our panic buying almost in January and the fact that we weren't buying for the and going back to your point about Bielsa, Kirk, yeah, it's bang on and it's definitely something to consider, the fact that players will want to come and play for him. But if the fella's only here for 18 months, 2 years, he's 68 now, whatever he is, and he's got, that's a short-term solution again, isn't it? At some point, we have to think a little bit more long-term as well. So we go in answer to your question, we definitely need a left back, as I think has been highlighted. We definitely need somebody on that side. Don't like Adam Smith going there, as John said. Don't like it at all. We don't need any right backs. Do we need another centre back? Maybe not. We've got 4. We're forgetting about Jack Stevens, who had a great game against Everton, albeit they were poor, but he looked good. He looked assured. Metham's been like a new signing in himself. Senesi has been phenomenal. Those 2 have been outstanding. And you've got Lloyd Kelly to come back in, as Davies just said. So you've got 4 decent Premier League centre-halves for me there. So I'm not sure. Neto is one that the jury was out for me when he signed, as I said. But he is proving him. If we can get him fit again, he's proven himself. Very assured. He's obviously got a lot of experience. And it's not just about him as a goalkeeper. It's about him as a personality. It's about how he manages situations, even how he manages officials during the game. I've noticed he's just got that nous and that experience that you need, that bit of gamesmanship that maybe Travers lacks, and Travers lacks confidence at the moment and experience. So in hindsight, the Neto signing was great. So I think we're strong enough there. Travers needs games. So it's chicken and egg, isn't it? He needs games, but at the same time, we can't afford him to be, make mistakes like he has been, albeit he's been phenomenal most of the time he's played for us. I just think we definitely need a left back. We need a winger. I just think we do need to pay. We have got Dembele. You rightly say, is he Premier League quality? Same as Jamal Lowe. And also, nobody's touched on Marcondes yet. Where does it leave Marcondes? Because he's obviously not quite there, is he, in terms of Premier League level? I still think we could do with a number 10. We could do with somebody and another option up front. I think, as John said, we've only got 2 out-and-out strikers, really, in Kiefer Moore and Dom Solanke. Maybe we need something different there, whether it's a number 10 stroke forward that plays off of Kiefer or Dom, whoever it might be. We need somebody in that position for me that can add that extra little bit of quality. I think defensive midfield, we're okay. We're okay. I mean, Lerma flatters to deceive at times for me. He doesn't always set the world alight for somebody that cost us 25 million, albeit I love the bloke. As you know, I've named my kitten Lerma, or our kitten Lerma. So that's how much I love him.
So true.
But he is frustrating, isn't he? And he is a liability as well. His temperament has improved. But overall, I would say we need 3 or 4 players to come in, some real, but not just players that are going to come in as squad players. We need players to come into that team when needed. We do need to add quality to survive at this level with the new manager in place. So left back, striker, winger, for me are the priorities. Maybe a number 10 as well if we can.
I'm just thinking, John, that there might be a video potentially out where we rated players so far this season, and I reckon if Matt watches that video, he might disagree with some of our choices.
Exactly what I was thinking, but that's on you, Kirk. To be fair,
that is on me. You'll have to check it out, Matt. It'll probably go out before this video.
Right. Okay.
So, I'll tell you what, guys, because we are going to close out this video, and I've really enjoyed this, and we hope you, the fans, have really enjoyed this debate, and I'm sure you've got lots of thoughts. And I'm going to pose one more question to you guys. You're going to get about 30 seconds to think about it. If you could sign one player, one realistic player, don't just go Lionel Messi or something, one realistic player, and Bill Foley says, here you go, Bielsa, here's £30 million, right? You could sign whoever you want. Who would you sign in January? And you've got about 30 seconds, because I'm going to tell the fans that you need to like this video. And definitely tell us your thoughts in the comments. This is your opportunity. You've asked the questions. We've answered some of them. And you definitely need to dive in there and let us know what you think, because we do read every single comment and we will interact with you. Also, thank you to Aquashine Exteriors, our sponsors. Do check them out. Their details are in the description below. And thank you to our monthly members for donating, and anyone who's made off one-off donations, you can become a member or donate at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. We are clocking an hour on this video. We're going to close it out very soon. I'm seeing the stress around the room. I don't have an answer because I didn't have time to prepare for it. David, if you could sign anyone for AFC Bournemouth in January, realistically, you've got 30 million quid. Who would you sign?
Oh, I don't think we'll be able to get him, but I really like Trossard from Brighton. I think if we could, I mean, in a perfect world, if we were able to lure him as a realistic, obviously there's hundreds of players that are better than him, but somebody who's at a mid-table team, I really like him.
Free trip to Las Vegas might be on the cards, so it might be tempting. Matt, if you could sign anyone, you've got 30 million quid.
Yeah, you've not given me enough time to think about it, Kirk. So the name that springs to mind is Brereton Diaz, to give us another very, very strong option up front. Teams that score goals stay in the Premier League, and that would really strengthen us in forward areas. So Brereton Diaz, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't spend 30 million, but I said to spend with inside 30 million. I can see it. I think there's still a question mark over he's never been there, but Nebel was Kiefer Moore. So, so you can counter argument that. John's going to come in and buy Traore, right?
That's your one, Kirk. To be fair, Solanke hadn't exactly done it in the Prem either, and he is now. So, no, when you said 30 million, that threw me off, because now I feel as though I need to be a bit more impressive than just the player that immediately sprung to mind.
Save it, John. The rest can go towards the stadium.
Well, you want to put four, you want to get 2 or 3, maybe 4 players at 30 million.
Exactly.
A player I think we could pick up for dirt cheap, because he's barely featured for Forest, was a player I think we should have got before they did. Harry Toffolo.
Yeah, I know.
Because if we need cover at left wing back, he'd be fantastic. And he's not played at all for Forest. And they got it for 2.5 apparently from Huddersfield. I reckon 3 million would probably be able to get him. And I think he'd be a fantastic addition. He wouldn't necessarily be an upgrade on Zamora, and I think there probably are options, but I would. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine Simon Francis taking Harry Toffolo to Bill Foley when he's looking for a glamorous signing, spending 30 million? But I do like it.
Hey, Kieran Trippier wasn't a glamorous signing. He was the perfect cog to start that Newcastle revolution.
I'll tell you what, we're all forgetting about, guys, as well. David Brooks. When I'm talking about number 10s, I'm talking about forward players.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with Brooksy in the new year?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. There was a final question. We have gone on for long enough, but thank you to John Amos, who dropped who's the best Premier League striker. I think he put in there, is it Josh King or Callum Wilson? Callum Wilson's just been, he's just been taken to the World Cup by Gareth Southgate for England. So I'm going to say Callum Wilson. I don't know whether the stats tell you that, but Callum Wilson over Josh King every day of the week for me. And surely no one's going to disagree with me on Callum Wilson. Right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, are you judging it on the Callum Wilson throughout his career, or are you judging it on just their time at Bournemouth? Because
he does say in the Premier League, to be fair. I mean, that's what John says. But anyway, they both done well. Josh done well when we lost Callum, and he got, I think, 16 goals that season. That definitely did help us. But Callum Wilson is, for me, if you're going to ask me the two, it's going to be one of them. David, this has been a really interesting video. Actually, I think we should be doing more of these videos in the break. I think it opens up different conversations, different avenues. It's made me think about it more, about different topics we've discussed, and hope you've enjoyed yourself, and thank you.
Sure have. Thank you for having me.
Matt, Thank you as always. Some interesting conversations. As I said, I definitely think there's a platform here to have more of these debates.
Oh, 100%. I've really enjoyed it, guys. And it's just it's great to have, everybody's got different views. But at the end of the day, I've said it before, we've all got one common passion and one common goal. And that's we want the best for our football club. So it's great. It's great to talk. It's always great to talk Cherries and see you guys. So I really enjoyed it.
Cheers. Thank you very much. And John, we've mentioned it 3 times. Might as well mention it one more time. You need to go and check out Jon's Bielsa versus Gary O'Neill video. It'll be at the end of this video. John, thanks for coming on because, some interesting conversations.
Yeah, thank you very much for well and truly shilling out for me on that one over this video. Thanks again for having me on, Kirk, and I would love to be involved in another one of these discussions. We're going to have plenty of time for them during the World Cup. But if you can't contribute for a number of different ways for us, please put a question in the comments because we read them all, and we're looking for more topics to discuss, whether it be on Twitter or Instagram or even the YouTube comments. Put something for us to have another think about, and we'll come back with another one of these later down the line.
Cracking idea. Definitely do that. If you've got any future questions for a future video, stick it in the comments, just like John said. That's a brilliant idea. That saved me actually some work to actually put it out. So yeah, definitely do that. But that is the fans' questions answered. We've had a really good debate, and we'll have many more videos coming your way. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 1,300. Thank you so much. But let's keep going and hit the like, because we do like to try and get to about 50 likes on our video. So support us with that. But thanks for joining us. Thank you to David. Thank you to Matt. Thank you to John and myself. And until the next video, we will see you soon. Up the cherries.
Up the cherries.
Cherries.